nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Council members Thompson,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Davidson,
Here.
Lawson,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
McCallum,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
White.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances. A, employee recognition, years of service. Probably, yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us. We're here tonight to present Vanda Meehan with 20 years of service to the Belton community, and specifically with Belton Parks and Rec. Most of you know Vanda. She's been around a long time. She's kind of our historian. She does all of our marketing and social media, handles most of our rental program, and so congratulations to Vanda.
Thank you.
You want to speak?
No, I mean, I don't really have anything to say. I've been here for 20 years. Some days it seems like an eternity. Some days it seems like yesterday. But I truly love working for the Belton Park Department. It makes coming to work easy, and I really enjoy being a part of the Belton community. So thank you for having me.
All right, item 2, car show.
Good evening. I'm Kaylee Baker. I'm the Special Events Manager for Belton Parks and Recreation. We would just like to propose moving the hours for the car show from, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for September 28th instead of the allotted 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. We decided to move the car show just from lack of interest. From June 22nd, we did cancel that. So we already had a cruise scheduled for the 28th of September. We're just asking to put the car show and change the hours of closure for those streets.
We need to do anything with that now, or should we?
I do not believe that we need to do anything at this exact moment, but the staff will prepare something to bring back.
Oh, perfect. All right, thank you for that. Unfinished business. Item F, new business. Item 1, motion approving resolution 2024-62.
A resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation bonds of the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Thank you guys for coming. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Before you tonight is a resolution that would authorize the offering for sale of general obligation bonds. In the council action report that was in your packet, I listed some of the projects, or actually all of the projects that we would be doing with these bonds. So I want to go over those real quick for you. And if there are any specific questions regarding the projects, I will let Greg answer those when it comes to the project specifically. I'm the money lady, so I can answer those questions for you. The first project that I want to talk about is Street and Curb. It's an $8.25 million project, and $8.25 million will be coming from the bonds to complete that project. Markey Road is a $4 million project. $1 million will be coming from the bonds. The Raise Grant is a $1.5 million project. $250,000 will be coming from the bonds. North Cass is a $5.5 million project, and $2.5 will be coming from the bonds. And then out of the Stormwater Projects Fund, it will receive $3.25 million to complete the construction of culverts on Mill, Sunrise, and Park, and a connection of storm sewer to Route 58. Does anybody have any questions regarding the resolution or the projects?
Any questions? Go ahead.
On the Markey Parkway one, is that the one, it's 4 million project, but it's 1 million coming from us? Is that because we have that grant? Is that what's going on there?
Correct. So we have received a grant for $3 million for that project. Today I was able to extend that grant for an additional $750,000, so now we'll have $3.75 million on that job. However, the estimate for construction continues to rise as inflation keeps going up. So we're still somewhere around that point. So, I mean, it says 1 million, but everything's gonna be a little bit fluid of how much each project needs until we bid the jobs.
Only other question I have is regarding the audits and that process. We are anticipating to be done, hence why we're going through this process now, correct?
Correct.
What happens if there's some kind of unforeseen issue with that? Do we put ourselves, I guess, talk me through what happens if there's an unforeseen issue there.
With the FY23 audit,
Yes.
we don't see any issues with the FY23 audit so far. I mean, we have everything to the auditors. They are working on everything right now, and everything looks clean. But if there is an issue, I mean, we will find out before we would sell these bonds. So we wouldn't go through with this
Okay,
if
so
there
we
is
will,
an issue.
Take into consideration it's a different company than last year.
okay. So I guess that was where my question was going, was we're not gonna find ourselves in a predicament where we're starting to sign stuff, and then we find out there's a problem. We'll have that answer before we do that.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Councilmember McCallum, worst case scenario, we could always put a pause on it. It's not like because we are setting this, we approve this resolution today, doesn't mean that we have a deadline by which other than we could extend it if we needed to. There's nothing hard and fast at this point of setting a date. So if there was an unforeseen circumstance, which I think is what you're trying to allude to, just in case something like that happened, there are plenty of points in this process where we could pause and say we need to let this finish out, and it's not going to hurt us. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
And we have to approve an ordinance to sell the bonds. This is just
Oh, I saw the
authorizing-
timeline.
Yep,
I
okay.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. See, made him come all the way back for that. Item G, consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2024-64.
Mr. Mayor, that was part of the consent agenda.
Oh.
It's just
yeah,
on a
you're
separate
right.
page,
My
so
bad.
it's a
my
little
bad.
confusing.
My bad, I turned the wrong page. Communication from City Council. Councilmember Johnson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
I have a parks update. Surprise, surprise. So just want to give a shout out to the outdoor water park and the lifeguards out there and everybody that's worked there, because I know it's been extremely busy. And I want to remind everybody that we still have the farmers market going on every Thursday. So that's all from me.
I have nothing.
I'll just say congrats to Vanda on 20 years. If you've been to any parks events here in Belton, you've seen her. She works tirelessly, so kudos to her. And this Sunday, the 14th, is a softball tournament, Battle of the Badges, with Belton Fire and Police going up against Raymore Police and South Metro Fire Departments. I will be playing for the Belton Police Department, so
Whoa, time out.
be sure to come by concessions and not look at the game.
Who are you playing for?
I was not drafted, and I have nothing at this time.
Nothing too. Surprise, surprise, I have nothing.
I don't have much either. Just hope everybody had a good 4th of July, and I will be at the softball game as well. I get to throw the first pitch out.
Fun.
So Bleh.
Don't pull anything.
So, yeah, I won't pull anything either, so that's all I have. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I only have one thing, and that is that we received a letter from the Cass Community Health Foundation, and I wanted to share that with the rest of the council, just thanking us for the reimbursement for the dental services for Belton youth. We had approved $16,000 a year for 3 years, and we sent the first payment, and they got that, and so they sent us a letter thanking us for that support.
Go ahead.
I'll just say thanks to staff for creatively addressing, council's desire to support this organization in the community. It took some creative thinking, and thanks.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Items for review and discussion. Item 1 is being removed. So item 2, comprehensive plan update.
Yeah, since the last council meeting, Confluence and staff held 6 hours of open houses back on June 27th, at which we had about 50 attendees attend and provide feedback to the team. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to share with the council and the Planning Commission the feedback that has been provided with the draft comprehensive plan, and to have a discussion on any questions, comments, or concerns that may still need to be addressed before we bring forward the final draft for consideration. Staff tentatively has a public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, August 6th at the Planning Commission for their consideration, which would mean that any final revisions be made no later than the end of the month. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Confluence to review the feedback and have that discussion.
All right. Thank you. Mayor and Council, Chris Shires, Principal with Confluence. Also have Abby Eckberg, one of our planners here in our Kansas City office. Very pleased to be in front of you tonight to give you a short update of where we're at, all in prep for the final step of those the hearing with the commission, and then kind of the final presentation to you all. And so for this presentation, I want to do a quick recap of the project scope, schedule, how we got here, review the feedback from our last series of public open houses, and then just confirm with you the major draft components, and then just recap what's next. And so we're almost at the end here. We had outlined a 5-step process. We're at the tail end of phase 4, the draft plan development and review, that final step being the official adoption process with your commission, and then on to you for the ratification. So there's kind of that lengthy schedule in a nutshell. One thing I would note is that we are going to be meeting with your Parks Board next week to review the Parks chapter of this plan document. We have been coordinating this plan development with the Parks and Rec Master Plan that is in process to make sure both documents work well together. And with that, I'm going to turn over this next section to Abby to go through the summary of what we heard at our last meetings.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So as Matt mentioned, we hosted our open house back in June from 1 to 7, and so we had kind of 3 separate focus sessions, the first one being on the North Scott Corridor, second one looking at Old Town, and then the last one being more of a community-wide event. Anybody could have attended all 3 of them. Some people stuck around for all 3, so it was great to have long, lengthy conversations about the comprehensive plan with everybody there. We did have about 50 people in attendance, and so we just wanted to recap some of the highlights of commentary that we received related to the plan there. From a general perspective, seemed like everybody was fairly pleased with what the direction of the plan, the process that's gone on. It was nice to see some of our steering committee members in attendance as well, for them to talk to other people in the room and just kind of advocate for the plan and what has occurred over time. There were some clarification questions of like what happens next once the plan's adopted, what would that look like for us, what does the process look like to get the ball rolling on different tasks identified within the comprehensive plan. So I think we had a lot of great informative conversations with residents of just telling them kind of what that process does look like, as not everybody's really acquainted with the planning process and kind of what that looks like. So I think we had a lot of great educational kind of conversations there. Related to the North Scott Corridor, if you all remember back in October, we also hosted a charrette here in this room actually with the business owners, property owners, residents of the North Scott Corridor. And so it was really exciting to see kind of a lot of repeat customers of sorts coming back to that charrette, or the sub-area open house, I apologize.
just to see the progress that we've made on that. And I think generally they were very excited with the progress and kind of the next steps we proposed within the plan for the North Scott corridor specifically. We had a handout of just identifying the summary report from that charrette back in October, what the sub-area narrative is for the plan right now, as well as the sub-area that you see up on the screen here. I think things that we heard loud and clear from October were we want to have local support for the local businesses that have been present and strong and around for quite some time on the corridor, and how can we support them, looking at streetscaping, mobility from a pedestrian standpoint, as well as a bicyclist. Looking just at the residential opportunities there as well for different redevelopment opportunities, but how can we preserve some of the housing that's located there as well. And so I think a lot of great positive interactions there, and so good, strong steps forward for everybody there. Related to Old Town, I think there's a lot of great feedback and positivity towards the streetscaping efforts identified within the plan. Some conversations were had related to the sub-area that we proposed here with some of the pedestrian movement opportunities and how people are crossing streets, different intersections of concern, sidewalks of concern. So good conversations around that. The one thing we wanted to dive into with you all is the discussion of the partial one-way to a full two-way conversation that we have in the plan today, and just kind of clarifying some of the conversations and feedback we received there. So in the plan, we have an idea. It's not concrete by any stretch of the imagination, but an idea of utilizing the existing right-of-way that you have today of 60 feet and converting that to a full two-way from throughout all of Main Street there, so that it's a full two-way connection instead of a partial one-way as it is today. Nothing has to be widened within the existing right-of-way as it stands, but you would actually transition. You'd get a little bit more sidewalk space on either side of the road. You'd maintain parking on both sides. It would be parallel. I think that was the biggest linchpin in the whole conversation of people maybe not feeling as comfortable parallel parking as they do with angled parking, which is a fair statement. I think it is something of a concern with the parking and the quantity of parking, and so we actually did an analysis of this in the plan as well to examine how many stalls would be lost on Main Street specifically compared to with the angled parking today compared to the paralleled parking we have proposed within the plan. We also looked at side streets, as those would obviously turn into higher trafficked areas and higher desired parking areas should the different parking stalls be taken away, as well as Loop Road and Commercial Street with some additional parking. In total, we actually gained 7 stalls as we look at the kind of repositioning of parking throughout the corridor, or the sub-area, I apologize. And so I think it is more of a conversation piece with local business owners, next steps of what that right-of-way could look like, and just a comfort level with that parking, maybe temporarily transitioning it, seeing if it works, and kind of testing it out that way. But I think this is something to definitely consider moving forward, but obviously to have a greater conversation following the plan, just to see what the kind of temperament is moving forward. For general feedback on our interactive engagement website. So we've actually been posting the draft chapters and the draft plan, the future land use plan on our website for people to provide comment there as well. On the map specifically, we had opportunities for a good idea, needs improvement, or general comment. And so from that, we had about 21 comments. Generally, I was very surprised to see these were all fairly positive. Everybody, in one corner on Holmes Road, somebody said we should make this more intense commercial, which is not a comment we usually get on future land use plans. So I think that was interesting for us to see. A lot of the comments, though, did relate back towards the mobility and connectivity from a pedestrian standpoint and how people are getting around the community. And so I think a lot of conversations related to different roadway improvements, how we can actually build upon those to include different pedestrian opportunities as well. Looking at additional park services and greenway corridors in that northeast corner of the community today. I think it's noted in our parks chapter as well that that is kind of an underserved area, and how can we plug that into the greater parks network overall. There were some concerns as we kind of got farther south in our planning boundary of what this is doing towards the ag character within the community, which is a fair thing that we can anticipate within the conversations of any development from kind of a rural suburban community to a more metro suburban community and what those look like. So I think it is just getting people acquainted with the planning process and how can we have roundtable conversations of development and such with those residents as well. We did ask people if they had any general comments for us on the plan itself, and so we had 7 surveys received throughout that process.
Again, some confusion of, I think, what is Belton versus what isn't Belton and where your city limits truly lie. So another educational moment there. Some clarification in the housing chapter where we talk about neighborhood improvements. I think there was some confusion there of what neighborhood improvements versus a HOA is, and so maybe an educational standpoint on that and some clarification for us to consider within the plan as we do final edits there. Looking at more parks throughout those new neighborhoods and what a parkland dedication ordinance could look like. More desire for those street trees within the right-of-way for shade and traffic calming. And then lastly, looking at different programs within the neighborhood improvements for gardening opportunities and looking at how there's like the best yard kind of award. Somebody had proposed a best garden award, so a fun idea for us to consider there as well. I think generally that is all I had for the review of feedback. If anybody had any quick questions for me before I pass it back to Chris.
Any question? Go ahead.
From a participation standpoint, I know there was varying ways for people to participate, from the comments on the land use to the attending in person, et cetera. Can you talk to, if for a city our size, how was it in line with what you'd expect? Was it above, below, or just kind of what, from a participation standpoint, how you feel?
No, I think a very good question to ask. I think for a community of your size, we were very pleased with the engagement that we did have. When there were lulls, we were very happy to have conversations with staff to kind of game plan how can we improve this and how can we get this to be better, and is it opening up the engagement website for a little bit longer, is it doing another social media blast to direct people to the website. I think we were very proactive in trying to seek that out, and I think that was through a lot of consultant to staff coordination that was really beneficial for us. Stat-wise, I think we were very happy with the engagement on the website in total of how many comments we received during the engagement period as well as during the survey period. Honestly, to get any comments back at all during the open house or the phase 4 kind of phase for us is a miracle. And so I think to see 21 comments on a map and 7 surveys, that we were very happy with that. Getting people to read a plan in general is a hard thing, and so we were happy with that in general. I think from the in-person events, we're always happy to have more than 5 people show up to some of these. It's getting harder and harder to get people to come out to planning specific events. I know it's not the most exciting and shiny thing, but I think for the 7 or 6 hour or open house that we had, we were happy with the 50 people that attended that and the conversations that we had, especially during the charrettes back in our early phases. Those were exciting conversations that I think helped build a lot of momentum throughout the planning process for us.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
All right, I'm going to pass it back to Chris. Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
There we go. Thank you, Abby. So to recap, wanted just to kind of remind us of the major components of the plan, especially as people continue to review it. There is an introduction section followed by the most important component of any comprehensive plan, that future land use plan and its chapter, and then building upon these 9 cores: city services, parks and recreation, connectivity and access, housing and neighborhoods, economic development, downtown, and community identity. And then that last chapter of really a summary of all the different ideas, goals, action steps baked throughout, in particular, the future land use and the 9 core chapter elements. And there is an appendix of different facts, survey results, additional information as a resource going forward. But to keep the plan document itself not quite so thick, it's typically a separate appendix. And I would note again, like I said earlier, we are meeting with the Parks Board to go through the Parks and Rec chapter of this plan to make sure they understand the components. What we've been working as a consultant team is to make sure this, which is a very typical and common element of a comprehensive plan, any good comprehensive plan has a Parks and Rec component or chapter, does coincide and work smoothly with the Parks and Rec master plan that the Parks Board is having developed. And so there could be a few additional tweaks or comments because we wanted everybody to know this is still very much in a draft form. We can make some final adjustments and edits as requested, and sure will. And so with with that, really we can happily go through any components of the plan. So there's a link to the plan copy on the website. It's a page turn format, kind of make it a little more user-friendly. But that what's next? So assuming everybody's comfortable with this going forward, we can have our public hearing with the Planning Commission and on August 6th, hopefully get their approval. And then we do want to then present the Planning Commission's approval to the City Council for your kind of receive, file, and acceptance tentatively here at your August 27th meeting. So happy to go through any great detail. Also happy to go ahead and sit down and let you move on.
Any other questions? Thoughts, concerns? If you have them, you know where to get a hold of him.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby. With that, I would entertain a motion to enter an executive session, discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1 pertaining to leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2 pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12. Let the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmembers White,
Here.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmembers McCallum,
Here?
Lawson,
Yes. I don't know.
Johnson,
Yes.
Davidson,
Yes.
Bryan,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries.